this is Sam Hilgartner, rigger at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. We're on our final day, final visit to the Roskilde Viking Museum in Denmark. We're just going to look at a few of the materials that they were using in the late hundreds to about 1100 AD on some of these Viking ships and early medieval Scandinavian vessels. This rope is really interesting. It's what they found most commonly used in the rigging on these vessels. It's actually a material called linden bast, and it comes from the bark of the linden tree. It's really, really interesting how it splits out. You can basically pull fibers away after soaking the bark for some period of time and have these really, really nice long fibers that you could then make. You can harvest the yarns from these fibers and make rope, 3-strand rope. You can see all the linden back here. This actual material is called the bast. It just refers to that peeling away of the bark is the actual bast. So that gets twisted up into a yarn. Those yarns then get twisted up into a strand of the rope. So that's the linden, really neat. I had never heard of this. The hemp comes a little bit later in history. They haven't found any Viking era vessels with hemp. They do have some other Viking era ropes before we get into slightly more Middle Ages to modern ropes, but these Viking era ropes that they have here, this is horsehair rope, which they said they found quite often, presumably used for some running rigging. It's very soft. We also have wool, which is really interesting. It's antimicrobial, so it means that it's going to be a little bit more resistant to fungal rot, which is an issue with some of the natural materials. So wool, which is also used for the sails here. And then we also have, this is some of my favorite, really crazy elk hide rope. So obviously no fibers or anything, it's just the raw hide. It's very soft and pliable. This would probably be great for standing rigging, forestay shrouds, stuff like that. And then we have another wild material, some seal hide. So again,
my personal favorite.
Joe's personal favorite. They're just using materials found in the resource base here. And this is really stiff, probably great for shrouds, forestay, maybe for smaller vessels. Going ahead in time a little bit, we find vessels really starting in the 15th century, going all the way into the 20th century, used using hemp rigging. The hemp has to be tarred because it is prone to rot. The tar is antifungal, so it treats and prevents the material from rotting. This is exactly the material we would find in an early 17th century vessel like the Dove. The tarred hemp is something that we would use if we could find high quality hemp fibers. Very, very difficult to find. We'd have to set up a rope walk and make all of our own rope, which is really a whole separate procedure and would require a lot of skill as well. It's a whole trade in its own. The last little bit of material I'd like to show is this is actually a cable. It's not rope. A cable is basically rope laid up into a larger diameter rope. So most rope in marine applications is right hand laid, but in order to lay that up into a thicker diameter rope, of course it turns into a left hand lay. So the fibers are right hand laid, the yarns are left hand laid, and then they lay up, eventually creating a right hand laid rope. So this is really cool. This would have been used for forestays, shrouds, things of that nature. Definitely the Dove. Larger vessels as well would have had cables, tarred cables. So that's really neat to see. They do demonstrate just a little bit of the modern material. This is spun polypropylene. We also have spun polyester. This is what we will be building the Dove out of. It resembles the pliability and some of the appearance and even the feel of hemp. This is pretty cool. There's synthetic hemp. So there's a number of products that produce, I bet a number of companies that produce products like this. The last thing I'll show you guys is this is really wild. This is a birch root or vine. Withey of Birch. They use this actually sort of as the axle on their steering oar or rudder on these vessels of this time period. So this would actually go through a hole in that steering oar, which seems to usually be on the starboard side, back aft on the vessel, which is just like a rudder. Just imagine a rudder. And this goes all the way through inside of the vessel, wraps around a large timber that's kind of like a frame, but it's a beefed up frame. And then it's all wedged in and tightened. It's a really crazy, almost kind of primitive method, but it works really well. Joe and I went out sailing yesterday on a vessel that had one of these, and it works really well. Super, super cool. We just found out how they harvest these. They just basically pull them down and just have a bunch of guys running around in a circle around the birch tree till it rips out of the ground. Really funny stuff. So this is cool. Birch Withey.
Nice.
That's what we got.
Cool.
That's what we got.